Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 17. And I don't remember what the title is. Something like, What Change Are You Ready For? Yeah, that's it. So, it's really interesting when we look at change, uh, when we look at how much we change, how little we acknowledge the change, how much we actually ask for change. All these different things. And the thing that really kind of prompted this today was seeing, actually, I think it was on my Twitter feed. I saw this post about someone commenting about how bored are you with what you do. And what's really interesting is I think a lot of people are bored with what they do. And I know for me that about, a couple of weeks ago, I was asking for change and I was asking for everything to change. And when I look at that, and it's fun to like spend a moment and look back and see what has changed in your life, to acknowledge what actually has changed. And when I look at even the last probably, 3 months-ish, how much has changed in my life. Like a tremendous amount has changed. And as we're talking about this, I'm in the middle of packing again to move to a new house, which Carlene and I are moving to on the weekend. So it is also that change of moving from one place to another, locations, change with people that you spend time with, people that you hang out with. That has been changing for me. And then also like the change in what I'm choosing to do. I'm changing where my focus and where my energy goes, and all the different places that I'm playing work-wise, that's shifting a lot for me right now. And the one place that I'm looking at more is to do more trading, which I used to do a lot of in the past. And we'll probably do a class on or something like that, because what I've really realized in talking about it, as I'm really spending more time with it and talking to people about it, is this this knowing, or what it creates for me, the change that it creates for me when I trade. And the cool thing about trading for me is that it's really about trusting my knowing. And when you do trust your knowing and you are aware, and then you choose based on that, and things show up in a certain way, it's really, really cool. And that's what actually makes trading super fun for me. I also like some other aspects of it, clearly, like numbers and watching numbers and perceiving those numbers and perceiving what they do and where they might be going and so on. So that's really fun as well. And so it's just playing with that a bit, and all the change that is going on. Really, this move has created a lot, and I've been looking at all different places in my life and what I like to change and what I like to choose and what I would like to play with. And this is a never-ending thing. Like, it literally doesn't stop. Because as soon as you stop and you don't change, you're no longer in motion, and energy is motion. And most of you actually enjoy the movement, the constant movement. And constant movement in your world may look really different than the constant movement in my world. And so in some people's world, it shows up as a lot of physical movement. And in other people's world, it may not actually look like that. Yet it still is a lot of movement. And so it's really interesting when we start looking at things like that. I also recently, just this last weekend, did a COP here in Vancouver with Gary Douglas, which was amazing. And it was really weird because in the class itself, it seemed like nothing was kind of going on. Hello, Eleanor. And yet, like, by the last day, I was just like, oh my goodness, like, I need my powers run, like, I'm fried. And so there, it took a while to really actually acknowledge the change that got created in that class. And also, what was really cool about this particular class, opposed to other classes, I was way more aware of, uh, actually, maybe not more aware of, just willing to acknowledge the awareness of how, where the class was willing to go, and also really aware when like things shut down, and not really shut down, it's just that people were vortexing and just couldn't receive anything more at that particular point in time. And it was really neat to perceive that energy and to be aware of it and to acknowledge that it was there and when it was there, and how quickly people received the change that they required. And that's as much as they could sort of receive in that moment. And the cool thing about any class you take, it still unravels, days, weeks, months later. And so the initial upfront thing was really interesting, like just perceiving that energy and acknowledging where the class as a whole was at different points throughout the class. So that was really cool. And so again, like just acknowledging the change that has come through it, and all the different things that showed up. It was really cool as well. We had the House of Bluso doing some photo shoots in our house before we leave, because it's nice place to do photo shoots. And so that was really cool to be a part of and to watch and to see 3 people that work together that really enjoy what they do, and to see the magic they create and the joy of the creation of the process of the creating the pictures in the way that they do it. It was really, really fun to see and watch and observe and be a part of, even though I didn't get any pictures taken. But it was really, really cool. It was really neat. And so it's like, it's really funny when I notice in my world that this whole change thing, when I have the willingness to acknowledge how much has changed and how much change I've actually been asking for. How much change do you ask for in your world? And if you're a person that doesn't actually ask for a lot of change, how much are you actually asking for that you never acknowledge that you actually ask for? And then also, how much change shows up in your world that you also don't acknowledge all the time? Like, how many different things that do you do all the time? Like, literally constantly, you're doing all these different things, and how much you're changing by choosing that. By choosing to do things not the same like you've always done them. And how this showed up in my world is that I'm actually asking for a lot of change, and a lot of change is showing up. And it's also a choice. Like, I'm also actually actively choosing it when certain things are showing up that I've been doing for a while. And the question is, oh, do I want to continue to do that? And when it shows up as a, maybe not, maybe I want to do something else. And yet I have no idea how to, like in this 10 seconds, I'm like, I don't know how to actualize those other things that I am aware of, that I know that I'd like to do, that I'd like to play with in different ways. I'm like, I just know that there are other possibilities. There are other ways to play. There are other ways of doing things, and other ways that I can contribute to the world. And so it's looking at all those different things. And I might even tangent here a bit, because that's what I do. The other kind of cool thing with change is also seeing what is. And so it's kind of cool to see what certain things are, how they show up in the world. And as I've been acknowledging that more, then I also look at, okay, so do I still want to continue choosing what I'm choosing? Or would I like to choose something else? And what might that something else be? And it may not be a cognitive thing for you to change, to like, oh, I want to do this exactly. It's like there is this sense I have, there's this sort of energy that I may not be able to put into words. There's something in my universe that I'm aware of that currently isn't in my universe or isn't actualized in this world. That's what I would like to play with. And again, it's if I go, and when I sometimes go to trying to figure out how I'm going to do that, I literally go blank. And that's where the questions come in. That's where the moments of like, okay, so what would have to show up? What would I have to be or do to actualize what I'm aware of, or what I'd like to choose, or what I'd like to change? And it's literally being in the question and asking those questions all the time, which I have really been playing with a lot. Because as I ask these questions, it's becoming a lot clearer to what I actually would like to create. And it's funny, one way, if you're sitting there going, well, I maybe I do want to change something, maybe I want to do something different, but I don't know what that is. And one way to kind of give you clarity is like, okay, what if you could do whatever it is you would like to do, and if you had all the money in the world to do whatever you'd like to do. So you basically take money out of the equation, or you say, you know, you get $100 million every year kind of thing. So you're taking money out of the equation, because that's a lot of times where we stop ourselves. We use money as the excuse not to choose something. So if money wasn't the excuse that I'm using for not choosing something, what would I then choose? And so then it gives you more clarity of what actually is what you desire, what shows up in your world that would be fun. And by doing that, it may not actually have anything to do with what you're currently looking at. And it's interesting to play with that, because I notice it in my world when I look at those different things and I choose in those, or I look to like, okay, if I could, what would I like to create now? And then if I look at it like, oh, what would I like to create if I had all the money in the world? It shifts a little bit. And so it gets you to see of like, oh, what other possibilities are there that I've never considered? And then actually asking that questions, what other possibilities are there that I've never considered? So cool. I tend to keep doing the same things until I know what I'd like to change. It's frustrating. Yeah, so also, what if you started asking more and more questions all the time? So instead of going through this repeat cycle until you're tired of it, which totally works actually, there's nothing wrong with that. Because sometimes going through that constant cycle till you finally get to the place where you're like, okay, I'm done. I'm done with whatever it is that I'm doing. Now I'm willing to choose something else. And sometimes it really just is required for you to do that. And there's always other ways of creating in a different way. And one of them is asking a lot of questions. And so if you notice yourself in frustration or doing the same thing and it's boring or frustrating or whatever, ask yourself, what is frustrating about this? What is boring about this? What else is possible? What else can I choose here that I have never considered? Because it's often you keep on choosing the same things because you don't actually believe you have choice. And that's the lie you buy. That's not true. There is no truth in that. You always have choice. In fact, you have an infinite amount of choices all the time. And so it's really looking at these things and going, okay, cool. So what else can I choose here? What else is possible that I'm not willing to see? And it's those things that actually, it's where we choose not to choose anything different than what we've already been choosing. And that's the loop that for a lot of people is what makes it frustrating. And so what if you looked at it and you stopped for a moment and you're like, okay, wait a second, like if I had total choice here, if I didn't have to continue choosing the exact same thing, what else could I choose? In this 10 seconds, what other choice can I choose that I haven't chosen before? And remember, it doesn't necessarily, whatever that shows up in that moment might not make any sense, and it may not seem related to what you're asking for. Because it rarely or never shows up the way you think it will. And so it's really making and it might be just something very small that you choose different. That you're like, okay, well, instead of choosing what I normally choose, what else can I choose? Okay, I'm going to maybe choose this and see what happens and see what shows up. And it's really playing with those different things that then get you into different possibilities. And then keep on opening doors and opening more and more possibilities. And it is continually asking the question. It's never stopping to ask what else is possible. And I think that's another thing. I know I've done it in my world, in my life, in my universe, is where I'm like, okay, I'm just going to ask this one thing and then, okay, I'm good. And then I stop asking questions, which doesn't actually create anything different because I'm no longer in the question. And so it's really always constantly asking what else is possible. What else can I choose here? Like really, what more can I choose? And still, this keeps on popping back, and I really get this when I get to meet different people and I get to look into other people's universes. I get to look into other people's lives. And for me, it's so cool because it is in those moments that you also get to acknowledge what you already have chosen in your life and maybe how different you truly already are. And I really love acknowledgement because whenever you acknowledge anything, it allows more for that to show up. And in most of these cases, when you acknowledge these things, you're actually acknowledging yourself. So you allow more of you to show up. Because that's the thing that most of us don't acknowledge and try to control the most is ourselves. From being the total space, the total no point of view, the total joy that we truly be. We look at all the things that we do wrong, that we're not doing right, that we're unhappy about ourselves. We are amazing at that. Amazing. And it's really, truly, one of the things that I've been looking at lately too is this whole thing about doubt. And I believe I spoke about it last week. And it's like the brilliance that we are to control ourselves and create doubt in our world and to limit ourselves, it is truly fascinating. And when you start to see the brilliance of yourself in what you actually do to yourself to limit yourself, it is magnificent. We are truly amazing at doing that. And even if you only acknowledge yourself for a moment of the brilliance that you are, it allows the space for something else to show up. And when you're asking for change in your world, like, how much change are you asking for? Are you asking, is part of that ask, or is the entire ask for you to no longer limit yourself in any way? Is it really that ask of like, okay, cool, how brilliant can I be? What can I choose in this 10 seconds that would contribute to changing this world entirely? And what have you already been choosing to contribute to that? Because I can tell you one thing, that if anyone who is here now or in the future listening to this is asking to be more of them, that's the change that people are truly desiring for. And there's this innate knowing within your world that you know that if you choose all of you, you can change the world. There was this book, this guy, you may have heard of him, Dr. Dan Heer, who wrote a book, Being You, Changing the World. If you haven't read that book, I highly, highly recommend you read it. As probably the first person in your life that you discount is you. You're the first person you judge. You're the first person that you see has a problem. Which in actuality, you don't have any problems. You are this amazing being that doesn't require any judgment of any sort. And if you weren't limiting yourself as dynamically as you are, what could you actually choose? And what else is possible? And how much more fun would life actually be? And how much more space and energy would be available to you that you wouldn't spend on limiting yourself? Because you spend a lot of time and effort doing that. And I say this because I actually know, because I do it to myself. And so what else could you choose? What else are you willing to choose? And how much fun would that actually be? And so these are the questions that I would like to leave with you today, is really, if you weren't judging yourself, what could you actually choose? What limitations could you literally just walk out of, leave behind in a fraction of a moment and choose something else? Is choosing something else actually that difficult? Is it as difficult as we have made it? Or is it literally just going, wow, if I had total choice, what would I choose in this moment? And also look at what is it in my world that I'm not actually choosing that in this moment? And it's not going into the place of having to figure out why, but it's just recognizing like, wow, I have some sort of story, some sort of belief or something that's not allowing me to choose that. Or that's what I'm choosing. I'm choosing to buy the story to keep me from choosing something amazing. And that something amazing is you. And how much fun would it be? And what else can we change with actually choosing ourselves and acknowledging the brilliance that we are? And when I just look at that space, yeah, the story of limitation, totally. We choose the story of limitation all the time. So what would it take to choose the story of total possibility? What if it was being that space? And when I look at the energy of that, when I look at the energy of that choice, that total possibility, that total space, the beyond this reality, the beyond the limitations of this reality, and it doesn't mean you are gonna lose yourself, because you actually are everywhere. It's not possible to lose yourself. How much fun could you have with you, with all of you? And how much space and allowance would that create in your world? And how much ease would that be? And with ease, how uncomfortable can it be to choose beyond anything you've ever chosen before? And uncomfortable doesn't need to be hard. It can be easy. It just may be something a little bit strange in your world because you've never chosen it. You've never chosen all of you. And so these are the questions that I'm going to leave you with today. Thank you so much for joining and showing up. It was super fun. I love doing these. Yay! And do it again, same time next week. And yeah. And see what changes from now till next week. And look at all the things that you can change in 1 week. Kind of make that as a target. How many things can I change in 1 week? And how infinite can I be? Thank you so much for joining. See you again soon. Bye-bye.